All right, we look all right? I'm not puffy, not like...
Your face is puffy, Jim.
Well, that's
the yogurt. I think it's the
That's
yogurt.
the yogurt. It's starting to get green. Yes, it'd be funny if I just vomited all over the table. How would you like that, Rafe? Good evening, and welcome to the Inside Scoop Year in Review. I'm Jim Mancini.
And I'm Raphael Bernier. Now, 2017 could very well be called the year of the brain. The year of the infant sibling brain, that is. Now, by studying brain size, brain shape, and brain growth early in development, the scientists from the infant brain imaging study were able to identify differences that emerged in the brain for children who went on to develop autism. Now, what they did is they looked at brain surface area growth from age 6 to 12 months, found that predicted brain overgrowth from 12 to 18 months of age, and that is strongly correlated with symptoms associated with social deficits and autism. Then they used complex machine learning algorithms based on early brain surface area, cortical overgrowth, cortical thickness, to predict which children go on to develop autism symptoms at 24 months of age. And as if that weren't enough, they then looked at functional connectivity at 6 months of age to use that to predict which children go on to develop a diagnosis of autism. Now, what does this mean for parents out there? Well, it's unlikely that it means that at 6 months of age, when a child is brought in for his or her visit to the pediatrician, it's unlikely that child's going to get a brain scan. However, it does point to important biological markers that could be used to predict autism before autism symptoms even develop.
I see your point about 2017 being the year of the brain. I would argue that it was really the year of the adult. Okay, and we have some proof to that because the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee just released a strategic plan, and they dedicated an entire chapter to adults. Now, what the IACC is a group of researchers and providers, family members, and individuals with autism, different stakeholders who advise the committee and which provides recommendations to the federal government about what kind of research they want to be done, okay? And what was learned was that there is this divide between the perspectives from parents of individuals with autism and self-advocates or autistic adults. What one side of the perspective is that parents have worked hard to try to provide support and services to their children in the hopes that they're going to be able to fit into society. What self-advocates suggest is that it's society that is the problem, and society needs to be changed in order to be more inclusive or more welcoming to individuals with autism. So there were surveys that were completed that took the perspective of these different sides, and I would actually suggest there's a third side, and that third side is us, the institutions or the establishment. And what we have always done is we've taken a look at autism from a medical model, looking at disability or looking at delays and recommending treatments that are designed to increase skills. And what the different perspective is looking at autism from this social model. So the path forward here really is to start listening and hearing the perspectives of these different sides in this debate and really aligning and looking at, realizing that we are all on the same page in terms of what we want, which is to provide the best services and support for people in the autism community.
Okay, well, in the interest of listening and being open, I just listened to you and your perspective. I'm going to circle back and say that if 2017 is going to be anything, realistically, 2017 is the year of genetics. And here are my reasons. Reason one, there have been a number of genes that have now reached statistical significance being associated with autism, and that number increased significantly this year. Okay. Number two, whole genome sequencing papers that reveal that there are previously unexplored regions of the genome that now are likely harboring variants associated with autism. Reason number three, we learned a lot about mosaicism this year in genetics. Now, when we think about mosaicism, we're talking about an individual who has cells in the body that have different genotypes. Specifically, what scientists found was that post-zygotic mutations, these are mutations that happen after an embryo is fertilized, that those mutations may account for up to 3 to 4% of all children with autism. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the fourth reason, which is that there have been a number of papers that have focused on the profile of individuals who have ASD-associated genetic variation. Specifically, I'll call out SCN2A as one in particular. This is one of the genes that's been most commonly identified through exome sequencing associated with autism. Now, what SCN2A does, real briefly, is it codes for a protein that is embedded in neuronal walls and allows positive sodium ions to pass through that channel to create an action potential, to make that neuron fire. And now what scientists did was they actually looked at the type of variant in SCN2A, how that impacted the protein channel, and they found that variants that resulted in an increased flow of that sodium ion into the cell was associated with very early onset epilepsy. And in contrast, they found that variants that were disrupting the function of that cell membrane so that, that sodium ions could not pass through that channel, that was associated with autism. So pretty significant finding in terms of how variation to the same gene impacts the protein and results in a phenotype.
Well, I grant that there was a lot of work in genetics this year. However, if you're going to go down that road, then we really should consider 2017 being the year of environmental factors.
Okay, well, I'm going to listen to you because I'm being a good listener.
Well, thank you, Raphael. Okay. So there were several studies this year that reinforced some previous work to look at the importance of folic acid taken during pregnancy and before pregnancy. And the results of these studies indicated that taking folic acid decreased the likelihood of having a child with autism. In addition, there was another study that looked at the timing of pregnancies. Having a child too quickly after having a child with autism or too long after having a child with autism seems significant in regards to whether you're going to have another child with autism. So this is important because it really provides some information to families about family planning and about prenatal care that is going to be relevant in terms of making decisions.
Okay, fair point, Jim. So I think this is complicated. We've chatted about the year of the brain, the year of adult, year of genetics, year of environmental factors. So I think we should probably consult. I think we should consult with our correspondent in the field, Lindsey Miller.
Okay, let's do that. We'll settle this.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Rafe. So I've listened to you, but I would argue that 2017 was really the year of the female. While there has been interest in females with autism for the last several years, this interest really intensified this past year. While a meta-analysis of gender rates found a 3-to-1 rate compared to the long-standing 4-to-1 gender rate, the disparity for this needed to be further explored. One study looked at girls with autism, elementary age girls, looking at their behaviors at recess, and found that girls tend to compensate more than boys with autism. Another study looked at the self-report of girls with autism and compared that to observations of girls and boys with autism and found a discrepancy between the self-report of girls and those behavioral observations. So we know that there's something going on with some masking of symptoms for girls with autism. We also wanted to compare that to the protective factors of girls with autism. A data set was scoured by scientists of over 3 million people and found that in looking at that, there was information there about gender when looking then at the rate of autism in younger siblings. So one really important finding was that girls with autism, if they were born first, tended to have higher rates of younger siblings with autism than if the older sibling was a male with autism. Also, in looking at brain tissue, we were able to find higher levels of dysregulated RNA in girls with autism, suggesting a higher genetic burden for girls with autism. So what we have here is more information to build on previous research of females with autism. But really what it does also tell us is we need more. We need to further explore these gender differences. I think I've made my case. Back to you.
Well, I think that's settled.
So that does it for our year-end special. We'll see you next year. Happy New Year.
I know, you'd be like, shut up, Rafe, you don't know what you're talking about, which is true. Because
I am a sleep-deprived mother of an 8-week-old.
Gotta toot your horn.
Oh my God.